Hey homeschoolers, I'm Melissa Webb, former full-time classroom teacher and homeschool mom turned full-time business CEO. Yes, I want to give you sound, educational, practical tips and advice, at the same time making sure that you're enjoying the family journey that you are on. So if you are looking for a place to be encouraged and inspired, you have found the perfect podcast. Homeschooling is a work of heart is truly the perfect place to start. So welcome. Let's jump in. Well, hello everybody. It's just about time for the holiday classic Home Alone. You may recall the house is chaotic. The adults are stressed. Everyone is rushing. They're snipping at each other. They are operating on zero patience. And in all the noise and all that pressure, Kevin gets pushed aside, misunderstood, and eventually forgotten and left behind. Now, whether you've seen this or something like it on a TV show, other movie maybe, or on social media, I think we can all picture the loud children crying and screaming and the parent who simply loses it and is screaming to be heard. Stop yelling as she yells. Like that is irony at its best. Gotta love it. Now think about this, because I'm sure you have an experience like I do, a time when maybe your child spilled juice on the table and onto the floor that you just washed, and you have that thought that I cannot handle one more thing. You're feeling so overwhelmed. I have been there too. And then you yell. You could yell anything. Seriously? I cannot believe you did that. I told you to be careful. And that always gives us a terrible result. It's just more chaos and maybe even some guilt tossed in there. And yes, one more thing you really don't want to handle. And that's what I wanted to talk about this week, especially because I know we're going into our Thanksgiving week, and I just think this would be a good top of mind conversation worth having. Do you ever wonder why we lose our cool as parents? So often people will want to say, well, it's the kids. I wasn't like this till I had them. But spoiler alert, it's really not about your kids. It's not. I know you might want to fight me on that, but it's true. It's really not about the kids. It's your thoughts about the kids. That's where all the power plays. And I will tell you this, that there are studies consistently showing frequent yelling within a home or harsh verbal discipline. Those things are linked to more child behavior problems, anxiety, lower self-esteem, just negative things that do affect our kids. We are the start of all of that, and we need to take that ownership. I think it's good news because when we realize this is something we can control, we can show up as better parents, and all of a sudden it seems like our children are just behaving better when in fact we're modeling better and we're showing up better, and it has that trickle down effect. So as we get ready to roll into Thanksgiving week, you may be looking forward to joy and peace, but for most of us who live in reality, we know tempers are going to rise, stress will be present, lists will be long, and with that kind of busyness, I know we don't always slow down long enough to think before we act. So I have some tools for you this week. I wanted to start with the family stress model, FSM. Are you familiar with the family stress model? It's actually a well-established framework that psychologists have been using for decades now. A little background is that FSM, which as I said is the family stress model, it was originally developed by a professor, a researcher by the name of Conger, Rand D. Conger. And he was working on all of this in the 1990s. He originally linked economic disadvantages to child and adolescent outcomes. What happened when you had children and adolescents in some kind of economic disadvantage? And that's where it started. Then, as he and his colleagues continued to study parenting in detail, they found that when pressure was put on a caregiver in a way that it created a distress in them, then conflict or harsh parenting practices rose, and it resulted in poor child adjustment, meaning children don't do well when we come at them with anger. It creates a negative environment and atmosphere. So not surprisingly, when parents are stressed by money, relationships, work, the mental load of life, they just are so much more likely to use that harshness, harsh verbal reactions or yelling, even when they value calm parenting. They may say, that's who I want to be, that's how I want to show up. And next thing you know, they're yelling. And I just want to say over and over that this happens to the best of us. We are human. So please do not be hard on yourself if this is an area you want to work on. I really hope that the right person is here today, listening to my voice, listening to what I want to share with you today, in the hopes that when applied to your life, you're going to be able to make some changes for the better. That's what I want for you. The truth that no one talks about is it is not your kids who are causing the yelling, the snapping, or the short fuse moments. You know what's causing it? Feeling stressed. That's what does that. So sometimes a child will do something, and whatever that action that your child did, that circumstance, you have a thought about that and it stresses you out. And then you retaliate by yelling or being harsh, or that short fuse explodes. Psychologists have studied this for decades, and what they have found are repetitive patterns. I mean, again and again, these things happen. When life piles on money worries, holiday pressures, too many tasks, not enough sleep, tension within a relationship. When any of those things happen, our nervous system gets overloaded. And when our nervous system is overloaded, things like a drop in patience happen. Your tone may sharpen. Your reaction to something that normally wouldn't set you off, all of a sudden it sets you off. But it's not because your child is bad. It's not. So telling our children that they're bad is something I really want you to think twice about ever saying, and instead first take that ownership. Because stress changes how we show up and how we react with our children, and that then affects our children and our children's children and their children's children. This is something that can be generational. So keep that in mind. So the family stress model talks all about this. And if you want to study up on that some more, I highly recommend it, especially if this is an area that you really want to work on. Once you do realize the real source of your tension, being perhaps that stress, you can take your power back and you can become the parent you really want to be, the patient, loving, kind parent, that one. Once you can realize the real source is your thoughts, then you can pause, then you can take a deep breath, then you can step away for 10 seconds. You can change a thought. You can just say one calmer sentence. You could ask for help. So again, as we're going into the holiday season, I want to ask you, are you wanting perfection this year or peacefulness? It's impossible to have both. And the problem is when we go for perfect, it always comes out short in some shape or form. But the peacefulness, that I believe is more tangible. And just know this doesn't mean that you have to try to be the perfect parent with your children either, because no child needs their parents to be flawless. They need us to be real. They need to watch us notice our own thinking and to not blame them for our thoughts, for our feelings, and our actions. Now, sometimes, yes, the stress can be an issue, but I will also say that sometimes our yelling is created by something else, like perhaps an unrealistic expectation. Like, how should kids behave? Some of us have very strong thoughts on this, right? There are some loud beliefs out there, and there are some quiet beliefs. So I don't know if you say it out loud or you think it quietly to yourself, but were you raised believing a good child obeys the first time? Or if my child pushes back, that's disrespectful. That could be how you were raised, and you have that thought, and maybe you still want to keep that thought, but how we approach it really matters. So let me give you an example. I always like to think of an example. Let's say the circumstances, you've asked your son to take out the kitchen trash, but 5 minutes has gone by and you look over and he's still playing his game on his device. This is taken from my real life, by the way. The first thought somebody may want to have in this moment is, oh my gosh, he never listens to me. Now, notice when you have a thought like that, it's going to stir a feeling. How are you going to feel? Pretty furious, probably. And then you could yell, you could maybe criticize, you could power struggle, you could make him feel shameful, or you now feel shameful for the way you reacted. Maybe he'll cooperate with some grumbling under his breath, but maybe there's no cooperation at all. There's that scenario. And I've played that out in my life. Absolutely, I have. It's been a very long time because I have learned these tools and I still practice with these tools. So what can we do instead? First, you have to catch the thought. Take every thought captive. You've got to catch the story that you are believing. As soon as I said he never listens, that's a thought. It's not even true. My boys did listen to me from time to time. Of course they did. But in that moment, because he wasn't doing what I wanted, and I thought he was not respecting me, I had an expectation and he wasn't playing into it. And so I take it out on him when in fact there was a better way. So what I would recommend, if this is something that you're like, this could very likely happen to me today, what do I do? So I would suggest that you try this. Get specific and neutral and keep things short and sweet. So no yelling, no snark, just specific, neutral, short and sweet. I would walk over and I would stand in front of my son. That always got my kids' attention. Again, taken from real life experiences here. Eventually they look up. I don't even say a word because remember, I'm not there to have attitude. I'm just going to walk over and I just stand there. And sometimes when they would look up, I would just be smiling and they'd be like, oh, the trash. Right. Got it. Sometimes it would be that easy because guess what? They're kids. They're just kids. And then I could say in a neutral tone, hey, you know this. In our family, when someone asks you to do something, you need to do it. That's just respectful. And I know you're respectful. So yeah, take out the trash. That's simple. Now, if your child's going to fight you on that, you may have to remove the device. Again, not to be mean about it or mad, or just say, you know what, I'm going to hold this for you until you get back from taking out the trash. And again, reminding, hey, remember, in our family, when someone asks you to do something, you do it. That's respectful and you are respectful. Like, tell your kids what you want them to be. Even if you don't feel like they always are, nobody is, go ahead and still repeat it to them. I don't know if you know this, but parents who struggle with their own self-regulation are the same parents more likely to use harsher punishments and yelling with their own children. So I want you just to hear me out here because this is not about being a bad parent. It is about not having many tools for handling big feelings. In my generation, especially a lot of young boys, were never taught how to handle big feelings. They were told to suppress them. When I was growing up, big boys don't cry. I feel like we've come a long way with this on teaching people in general how to handle big feelings, but those boys are now dads. They maybe even are grandpas in some instances, and they may not always know how to handle their feelings. It's really about brain wiring and life experiences, and stress load can all be tangled in there together. But I really want you to think about how you were raised. Think about how your parents were raised and their parents were raised. I mean, we could probably do an entire podcast on the causes, effects, and solutions of self-regulation, but having the tools to regulate yourself is very important. If that's something you want me to go deeper in the future, I would be happy to do that. Think of how you would act in case of an emergency on a passenger jet. On a plane, they always tell you in the beginning, in case of an emergency, put your oxygen mask on first. That's how I want you to think about the next moment you are tempted to yell at your child. Just stop. Put your oxygen mask on first. Notice where your body is tight. Maybe drop your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. You could even try box breathing. I shared this technique on the episode called How to Calm Your Anxious Child. But this is the one where you could sit or you could lie down. You close your eyes. You breathe in for 4 counts. Hold it for 4 counts. Breathe out for 4 counts. And hold for that final 4 counts. It's like a box, 4 sides. And you do that just twice even. Your nervous system will settle down enough so that you can start to think reasonably again. And it is okay to say to your child, honey, I am feeling so upset right now, and I'm going to just take a pause. We're going to talk later. Keep in mind, that is very, very good modeling for later when your children aren't children, they're adults, but they know how to handle themselves, because maybe you weren't taught self-regulation, but we need to be teaching our children about self-regulation. The other thing I do want to mention is, could your short fuse be a sign of depletion or unmet needs? Because when we are exhausted or hungry, isolated, running on resentment, yelling does become a quick outlet. So again, our children are just the circumstance. It's our thought that's going to get the ball rolling. And the thing is, we have to be aware, if we are feeling so depleted, we're doing it all, right? And our emotional and our physical tanks are empty. We might want to take it out on the child. There's the old thing about, I was so upset I kicked the dog. Poor little dog was just sleeping. It's about us. And I will say that for me, this next part kind of goes back to what I like to call my martyr days. I lived many years as a martyr. I have to do it all. Nobody even cares like I care about this big Thanksgiving feast we're putting together. But once I swapped those thoughts that were not serving me for other thoughts like, you know what, I really haven't been super clear about who should do what. And I started making lists every holiday season. It's so funny. The family jokes about it now, but I still do it because it removed all of this for me. I made a list and I said, okay, we have 5 days before we're going to have all these guests over, and there are all these things I need to do. And I would make the list: wash the windows, sweep the porch, set up the games outside, whatever, empty the dishwasher, set the tables, whatever. And then I would put initials, or a lot of times I would say, here's everything that needs to be done this week. Put your initials next to which of these you want to do. And of course they'd be like, I don't want to do any of them. I know, but I'm not going to do all of them. We are a team. So go sign up for what you want to do. Now, I have had friends who have said, I shouldn't have to tell people what to do. We're all in this family together, and they should all know, and they should all see. Okay, good luck with that. That didn't work for me. If there was a sock in the middle of the living room, remember, I had all boys in my house. They would all walk over the sock. Even if I said there's a sock on the floor, they'd be like, oh, yeah, there sure is. And they'd keep walking. It didn't bother them. My family wouldn't care if our windows were dirty or if our porch was unswept. They just wouldn't. It wouldn't matter to them. It mattered to me. And so I made the list, and then I said, sign up for what you want to do to make this very special event all that much more special, because this is how we work together, okay? Just know we must learn to say or write our needs out loud. Don't keep those things in your head. You'll just fester, and then you'll just let it out by yelling or screaming or blowing your short fuse. Okay. What else did I want to say? I think that's about it. I guess just to wrap it up, I'll say that the moment you start noticing your thoughts and naming your feelings and choosing even slightly different actions, you are already changing the pattern. And that's beautiful. You do not have to be perfectly calm this Thanksgiving holiday. I want it to be a peaceful one for you, but just work on being a little more aware and maybe a little more intentional in how you're going to show up, and just see how things go. And be sure to let me know. I'd love to know if any of these things worked for you. Start with a great thought. You need to choose a great thought each and every day. For some people, they pick a strong scripture or verse. That's great. It could be as simple as, I choose calm, not perfect, this Thanksgiving break. Okay? Sound good? Please know, I am wishing you a cornucopia of blessings, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving. You've got this. Right on. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and listening this week. Hey, if this was something that you found valuable, don't forget you want to subscribe or follow so that every time a new episode is dropped, you'll be the first to know. And hey, before you go, if you are looking to get some of this academic writing under your belt and outsourced so that it's one less thing freeing you up to enjoy more time with your family, hey, you're going to want to head over to writeonweb.com to see what kinds of resources and materials I have available for you. I will look forward to seeing you there, and I will look forward to seeing you here in our next episode. Right on.